Hey gamers, we're back with another episode of Let's Create a Competitive Card Game. In this episode, we will be continuing with the theme of game balance by discussing cost curves. So let's get started. Alright, so last episode we came up with some new keywords and we finished the cost benefit analysis for the effects within the game. So I'll quickly go over the keywords and the cost benefit analysis for the card effects. So the first new keyword we came up with was assault, which just meant that the card could attack the turn it was played. The next keywords that we came up with were immortal immunity and invulnerability, which were just ways of protecting a card. So immortal just meant that the card could not be destroyed, and immunity meant that the card could not be picked or targeted by and was unaffected by the effects of that which it was immune to. And invulnerability just meant that the card could not be damaged. Now that card could still be destroyed. The next keyword we came up with was indomitable, which was just a way of saying that a will may activate more than once. We also came up with manifest and perish. Manifest is when this card enters play, and perish is when this card leaves play. And the last keyword we came up with was resistance, which was a lower level of immunity. So resistance just meant that the card could not be picked or targeted by the effects which it was resistance to. So essentially just the first half of the immunity keyword or ability. So what I'll do now is I'll go ahead and hop over to Excel so we can see the finished cost benefit analysis. Alright, so this is the finished cost benefit analysis for the effects within the game. Now you will see that there are some that are open or missing, and as I explained last episode, I do want to keep some things about this game secret, as I do want it to be a surprise somewhat to the people who will potentially play this game in the future. So yeah, these are the finished ones, and anything that's left out, I do have ideas for them. However, I will not fill them in. Now, for the main topic of this episode, cost curves. So what is a cost curve? A cost curve is just another way to balance a game. So a cost benefit analysis is also part of a cost curve, which is also part of balancing a game. Now, when I say cost curve with respect to what I'm doing in this episode, what I mean is assigning cost to the actual cards. So there are a lot of card games out there and they all handle cost curves differently. So I'll use, let's say, Versus System as an example. So I played Versus System when it first came out under UDE, Upper Deck Entertainment, and I know the game has been, I guess, remade or reimagined, but I'm going to talk about it how it was when it first came out when I played. So the resources in this game were that any card in your hand you could put face down as a resource. Now, if you put a card face down as a resource, it had to be a plot twist or location or reservist, I believe, in order for you to play it. But the point is that once a turn, you could put down a card in your hand and it would count as a resource. Therefore, the cost curve in this game was that one player would play on evens and one would play on odds. And when it comes to the cards and their effects with respect to the cost curve, the higher level the card was, the more powerful it was with both abilities and attack and defense. It was really rare to see a high cost card with lower overall combined attack, defense, and total effect than a lower cost card. Typically, the higher up a card cost, the more powerful it was. So you really wanted to hit your curve every single time, whether you were playing on even or odd initiative. Now, when we hop over to a game like, say, MTG, the cost curve there is a little bit different, as you aren't guaranteed a resource. You have to draw your resources and play them. So yeah, there is no guaranteed curve with respect to, say, always having the correct amount of mana for the turn. Now, I could do a entire very long episode on the cost of cards within MTG and how that game is balanced. However, I'm going to try to sum it up really, really quick and efficiently. So, in Magic, and remember, I haven't played Magic for probably several years now. So when I did play, I did know the cost curve at the time, and that's how I determined if certain cards were worth putting in my deck or not. And I did play Magic at a fairly high level, so this does work. Now, when it comes to the cost of MTG cards, every card has an inherent value of, let's say, +1, which makes sense as if you have a card in your hand, that is technically a benefit. And the more cards you have in your hand than your opponent, the more pluses or benefits you have as you have more options. Now, something unique with Magic was that the different colors had different benefits, and at some point at the cost of a card, the number was not linear. And that is to say that when a card costs 4 in MTG, depending on the color, it wasn't +4 benefits. It could be +5 or +6, as some cards grew exponentially compared to other colors. And when you take into account some of the effects, which look sort of like this cost benefit analysis here, a lot of the effects in MTG are +1s or +2s. Now, something else with the cost curve in MTG is that the different color mana affected the cost of the card. So say you had one of a colored mana, that would be +2 benefits that your card would get. And then when you would have 2, that would be +3. Now, all color mana, or all colorless mana at the time, was a strict +1 benefit for the cost curve. So you can see how the cost curve of MTG can get really, really confusing, as if you have a card that costs 4 black mana, technically that would be more powerful than a card that costs, say, 6 colorless and 1 white, as it's harder to get 4 of a single mana depending on the deck you are playing. So yeah, that is a really quick summary of cost curves and MTG. Now, I may not have explained that well enough, and if you guys really want, I can do a whole episode looking at some of the MTG cards and kind of showing exactly how their cost curve works. Now, this will probably be with the older cards, as like I said, I played several years ago and I don't really play now, and I wouldn't really want to invest the time in figuring out if there's a new cost curve or not. But now, with respect to this game, how do I plan on doing the cost curve? So, I will not actually be creating the cost curve in these episodes. I will come up with one, and the reasoning behind that is I really don't want to show how the cards are costed. Now, I will give the general idea, and if you have been listening, you do already have the general idea of how this works. So, to be clear, you can pick any random equation you want and come up with the cost curve for your cards. Say for this game, as an example, every card, let's say, is an inherent +1, and any card that can be played at any time obviously would need to be higher than a +1, i.e., let's say skill cards. You can play those on your turn or your opponent's turn. So a skill card could have an inherent value of +2. Now, when it comes to higher cost cards, I honestly will probably do like MTG, the Spoils, and other card games where the cost is not linear. It is based on some equation, and at times it can seem linear but be, let's say, exponential or not. So that's how I will be doing the curves for this game, and that is a good example of how you can do them for your game. Now, what I do want to do for the remainder of this episode is actually assign costs to cards. Now, one thing that is going to be an issue is relics, talents, skills. These cards don't really have attack and defense, so their cost is dependent on their effect. So, as I've already done, I've been coming up with the effects, and based on the effects, I will derive the cost of the card. And with maybe different type of resource costs, so skill points and talent points cost. Some cards, talent points will be more on them, and other cards, skill points will be worth more on them. So that is something I will have to think about when I am assigning the cost to these relics, talents, and skills. Now, with followers, I can assign a cost to these cards as they do have attack and defense, and so I can assign a cost and then assign an effect and derive the attack and defense for the followers. So with that said, the cost I will be assigning to the followers is just a numeric cost. It will be the sum of the talent and skill points that I will assign. And I do not know at this time what the total talent or skill points will be. But that really doesn't matter. And also, to be clear, there is no secret sauce or anything to how I'm going to assign these numeric values. This is just how I feel the total cost should be divided within the amount of followers, just from having played a lot of different card games. So I'll just go down the list and assign a numeric value. And again, these are just me just assigning regular or random numbers. Alright, so let's see. The reasoning behind this is you don't want, and what I'll do is let's extend this out. And so this should be kind of self-explanatory, as you don't want to have too many cards with a high cost, as in a game where you get one ability point a turn, it will take essentially at minimum, or I shouldn't say at minimum, it could take at minimum 7 turns to get up to the total 7 resources to play these. So you wouldn't want to have cards with this high of a cost, and you also wouldn't want to have a lot of cards with a low cost, as they may become irrelevant in the late game. Now, with the way I've assigned effects and I've done the cost benefit analysis for the effects, I can make cards with really good effects at lower levels. They would just have a lower, say, attack and defense, while their effect could be really good. And also a higher level cost card could have really high attack and defense with a not so great effect. So that should balance out fairly well. So let's go to life, and I don't necessarily want to assign these the same way I did with the mine card. So let's start let's say a number lower. So it's, again, it looks kind of the same. We have a higher level card, and we have a lot of mid-range cost cards, which a lot of games are won in the mid to late game. And you also see we have some lower level cards here, like a lot more lower level cards. And the reasoning behind that is for life, we are using clerics, and a lot of their abilities will be abilities that allow you to gain life, and they will probably deal with manifesting and perishing, as they really want to go for that life gain win. So they don't really need a high level card, whereas say something like mine may or may not. Now if we go to power, let's think about power for a second. How do we want to assign these? Let's say power is going to focus a lot on attack. They may not, well, they will have fearless, so they will have some effects. But the thing is, if fearless isn't active, they still need to be competitive cards. So let's go with something like, let's say, yeah, 7/7. Let's go with 6/6. Let's say 1/5. Let's say couple of threes, and let's go with a couple of twos, and let's say maybe a single one. So I was thinking all twos, but yeah, let's not do all twos. Let's do a single one. And this should be fairly balanced with respect to the cost, as again, power will mainly focus on attacking. Well, yeah, just attacking, not so much defending, though they will have maybe inherently higher defense than other cards. So let's see, and how about this? Let's not make all of these fours. Let's say two of these, and let's say they have more two cost cards than anything else. So these will be the total cost of the cards. And from here, when I'm assigning effects, again, I can take away the pluses and minuses from the attacks, or from the effects, from the total cost, and then I can assign attack and defense, and maybe even life if a card has life. Now, something else I want to do before I end this episode is, let's maybe say not all cards will be not all cards will have effects. So what is a way to balance that out? So one way that I can see to balance that out is just to go to some of the cards, and what I'll do is I'll say let's say that these are, let's say, vanilla. As a vanilla card in card games is a card without an effect. So let's say this 6 cost is a vanilla. Let's say we have a vanilla 4 cost. Yeah, let's go with a vanilla 4 cost, and let's say that the 2 of the 3s will be vanilla, and let's say that 1 of the 2s will be vanilla. And now what that does is almost half of the cards or the followers are vanilla. So what that means is that these vanilla cards will have higher attack and defense than their effect counterparts. So if you want to go for a beatdown style play style, then you can, regardless of, let's say, the color that you are playing. So we'll say that all colors will have vanilla cards, and let's go to the life cards, and let's say that a 4 is vanilla. Let's say 2 4s are vanilla. And again, this is all completely random. And let's just say 1, 3, 1, 2, and 1, 1 is vanilla. And for the powers, how do I want to do those? So power has 2 7 costs. So let's just say 1 is vanilla. That way you know that one of these cards is going to be really powerful, like one of their boss creatures. And again, let's say 6 is vanilla. And let's say what else? Let's say a 3 and yeah, let's say a 3 is vanilla, and we have 2 2s. So let's say that 2 of the 2s are vanilla. Yeah, let's say 2 of the 2s are vanilla. And let's say that one of the ones is vanilla. So now power cards, half of the cards are vanilla. So that makes sense as their cards primarily again focus on attack and defense. So if you really want to make a beatdown deck, then power would be the guild to use to make this beatdown deck. Alright, so this will be the end of this episode. And what I will probably do next episode is I will write a program that will take in some input and output the attack and defense. So let's say a program, I can input the type of card, whether it's a power, life, or mind guild, and I can input the total number of benefits and maybe even the total number of costs, and it will spit out what the attack and defense should be, as that will definitely go a long way in balancing a game. So if you like these episodes, be sure to like, subscribe, and all of that other good stuff. Thanks.